guys, welcome to our channel. I'm Rashi and this is my beautiful ragdoll Ninina, and today we're going to talk about Rare Beauty melting blushes. So I've been testing these blushes out for the last couple of weeks, and I have to say this is a bit of an odd formulation. We're going to get into all the details and I'll talk you through some application tips and a full review of this product. First, let's start off with some swatches so I can show you what these shades look like on my skin tone. So I just have my Dior Skin Glow foundation on, no powder, and I'm just going to go ahead with the first shade, which is Nearly Neutral. And I'm just going to pick this up on my finger. This is how much I've picked up. This is a really pretty shade. It's just, I think the word nearly neutral is perfect for it because it's a very much an everyday blush. So this blush sets down very, very quickly. It feels super creamy in the pan, but it's like the e.l.f. blush. You pop it on and it's before you even finish blending, it is already setting down. So this is just a light wash of the shade Nearly Neutral. And so now we have the second layer. So I'm gonna pick up just a little bit more, go ahead and apply this. It's quite interesting. You would think this would be a very easy formulation to use. Not so. I have other cream blushes in my collection that I can use a lot easier than this formulation. So all I'm doing now is just passing my finger back and forth just around the edges so that I can smooth out this blending. And that's again another tip with this, that if you've applied too much or you feel like this blush isn't blending, you can go ahead and just swipe your finger. It always just kind of moves the product around. So this is the shade Nearly Neutral. Just gonna come in close. Definitely a nice nude tone that works well for my skin tone, and this is a type of shade I can really wear with almost any look. Next up, I'm going to go with the shade Nearly Apricot, and I'm going to pop this on this side. This time I'm going to apply it with my finger, but I'm going to blend it with a brush so I can show you what that looks like as well. So Nearly Apricot is really, really, really beautiful. I really love this color. As you guys know, when it comes to orange coral tones, I cannot resist. They look really beautiful on my skin tone, so I'm a huge fan. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this shade on my cheek, and then I'm going to pick up my Hourglass brush number 2, and I'm just going to blend it out with the brush. So that almost disappeared on my skin. It's still there, and I don't know if you can tell, it's given me a slightly uneven application. Not sure if you can see that. I'm going to apply another layer. Just here, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pat this cream blush in. That works better. If I do swiping motions, I will end up removing the product. But patting works well with this formulation. Again, I feel like I have a slightly uneven application. However, as these blushes are so sheer, you can't even tell that they are applying a little bit unevenly, but they are. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more and blend with my finger. So my favorite application for these blushes, definitely finger. I feel like with a finger you get a better finish than you do with a brush. And like quick tapping motions, that's the way you want to apply them. So now it's looking a little bit more even. And then if I wanted to make sure that it's blending nicely on my cheek, take a clean finger and then swipe just at the edges. Just at the edges, and it will kind of remove some of that product and give you a nicer blend. So, I mean, you kind of saw that yourself. So this is a really, really beautiful color. It works so well for my skin tone, and this is the shade Nearly Apricot. Next up is the shade Nearly Rose, which looks really bright and pink in the pan. Pat, 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 pat. This is a very pretty color as well. These type of cool tone pinks, I find quite flattering on my skin tone. So when I worn this blush in the past, this is really how much I've used it and I've loved it. It was very quick and easy to apply, as you saw that. Just as long as you make sure that you pick up a small amount and just in quick tapping motions, you can kind of get this blush to blend out and it just looks really pretty. In real life, I would not build up more than this because it just looks really, really beautiful. But of course, for demonstration purposes, I will build up a little bit more. But just remember, guys, these blushes are supposed to be sheer. If you're looking for really pigmented colors, you want to go ahead and pick up the Rare Beauty's liquid blushes. Those are the ones that are super pigmented. So I won't blend it out anymore because if I do, it'll just disappear. So this is the shade Nearly Rose. Next up, I have Nearly Berry, which looks really deep and dark in the pan. This one is in fact quite pigmented, so I'm going to pick up a very small amount of this, only this much. Right here, you can see it's quite bright, and then I'm gonna go ahead and apply this. So that is a lot of color payoff. This is a beautiful color as well, especially for deeper skin tones because it's also very pigmented. It's actually going to give you some payoff without it looking too sheer. Oh my god. Beautiful. As you can see, I have sheared this out quite a bit and it looks pretty similar to this shade right here, which was Nearly Rose. So if I was you and you're interested in picking one of these up, I'd just pick one shade over the other because on my skin at least they look very, very similar. I'm going to go ahead and apply a teeny tiny bit more. But as you can see, it's quite pigmented. And it has almost like a purple tone to it. It's really, really stunning. And I'm gonna swipe at the top. Just to diffuse that out. That's gorgeous. So this is the shade Nearly Berry. Nearly Rose. These two shades are just so similar. Let me know what you guys think looks better. Which shade would you pick? Next we have the shade Nearly Mauve. This is another shade that's a little bit similar to Nearly Rose, but it's not as cool tone. So out of Nearly Berry, Nearly Mauve, Nearly Rose, I think you could just pick one. Seriously, you really don't need all three. That's really beautiful. Gorgeous. I'm not going to apply too much of this because this is the one I'm going to stay put. So I'm going to apply a little bit more. You can see the color there. A gorgeous sort of a nudie pink. So this is the shade Nearly Mauve. I also want to mention this is one of those blushes that you can actually take up right under that eye area. Even if you've got powder under your eye area, this isn't going to look cakey or is going to mess up that under eye area at all. It just looks nice and beautiful. As you can see that I've taken it really, really high up in my under eye circle, so that entire look is pink. And this is quite a popular technique on Instagram, and I feel like this is one of those formulations where you can do that because it's not very emollient or creamy. It also applies perfectly on top of a powdered under eye. And so I've also enjoyed that, actually taking that up kind of right underneath that eye area, which gives it a very sort of youthful look. So I talked through some of the application tips for these blushes. This is definitely a very different formulation than what I'm used to in the cream blushes that I currently have in my collection. What I really enjoy about these, that these are actually sheer. I do kind of like that because that makes them really easy to use. With really pigmented blushes like the liquid versions of Rare Beauty, which I have filmed swatches for if you haven't seen them, they can be a little bit difficult to work with because they're a little bit difficult to blend and they are super pigmented, so you end up applying a little bit too much too quickly. With these ones, it's I love that they are sheer, and so you can build them up slowly if you wanted to. You can also actually take away product. So you saw in the application that if I applied too much, it was actually really easy for me to remove product. I could either do that just with a brush and kind of use swiping motions, and that way it will remove a lot of the product, or I could just use my fingers in sort of swiping motions and that will remove product. So quite easy to sort of take away if you've added too much, which isn't necessarily the case with the liquid versions. So that's something I've really enjoyed about these. They also have a very slippy texture. When you pop your finger in there, you can kind of glide your finger, and I'll show you what I mean. So you can kind of see it's a very slippy texture, but it's not slippy in terms of being very oily or emollient. They aren't actually very emollient, but they have almost like that silicone-y feel. They're very lightweight. So, and just have a look at that. It's so interesting. So just with me sort of passing my finger over my hand here with this blush, you can kind of see that uneven application that I've got. Now, this doesn't really happen to me when I use some of my other high-end blushes. Westman Atelier are a lot more expensive than the Rare Beauty. I personally prefer Westman Atelier any day over these blushes because I don't have to work so hard with Westman Atelier. You pop some on, you blend it with your finger or with a brush, and they just blend out beautifully. They're super seamless, easy to build, easy to take away. Beautiful formulation, yes, very expensive. However, with Rare Beauty, they can look quite uneven. And that's one of the things that I don't particularly like about this blush. Yes, it's sheer, and because it's sheer and slightly slippy, it's easy to use. However, it also makes these a little bit uneven to apply. Now, because they are so sheer, oftentimes I've noticed that even though I've put an uneven application, it doesn't look uneven just because they're so sheer. But if I build on more and more product, that that uneven sort of those uneven patches can come through and can show up. If that does happen, again, you can easily take away just using this brush, or in swiping motions you can actually remove product. And I think that's the reason why I call this a very odd formulation, because I was really expecting a type of blush where it was emollient, where you could pat in your finger and it would just kind of melt into your skin and you really don't need to put any work into it. But that's not the case. You do actually need to put some work into this formulation despite them being so sheer. Now, they are great in terms of longevity. So I've been wearing these blushes on sort of different foundations. I've worn this on the Huda, the NARS Tinted Moisturizer, and my Dior Skin Glow foundation. And all of three foundations, these have lasted all day on me. They will fade a little bit, perhaps that 7-hour mark, but really up to 9 hours, you can still see color on your cheeks, which, considering how slippy this is, how thin, how sheer it is, it was really surprising that they lasted all day on my combination skin. I was really amazed at that. I was not expecting this blush to last this long. So if you are looking at purchasing these, at least the great thing is that they last all day. Even though that initial application, I think there's just a little bit of a learning curve. If you kind of understand how to apply these, you will be okay. So overall, I think these are nice blushes. I wouldn't call them great or amazing or a must-have, But I do think that they're nice blushes, especially for the price. I think price is quite important because although there are many other cream blushes that I personally prefer over this formulation, they're all very expensive and a lot more of a high-end price tag than this one. If you're interested in this, I recommend maybe only buying one shade to try out and see if you're going to like the formulation. If you love it, go ahead, you can pick up more shades. If you don't love it, at least you wouldn't have wasted a lot of money. Now, some of these shades are also very similar. Nearly Mauve, Nearly Rose, and Nearly Berry are very, very similar, at least on my NC38, NC40 skin tone. So if I was you, I would probably only pick up one of those shades. I hope you guys found the review and the swatches helpful. If you did, smash that like button and I will see you guys in my next video. See ya!